Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Lawrence. I need to show my face, right?
Yes, sir.
Just a sec. Are you? There you go. Okay. I believe you can see me now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Slide. Can you all see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So today I've been asked to on exploring pathways to vibrant ocean economy for Africa, concept of ocean sustainability. So I would attempt to do that by talking about what the whole course is about, why we need a sustainable ocean, and why now. I'll talk about how sustainable ocean concept came into being. Then I would move on to what a sustainable ocean economy should look like. Then I'll conclude. I'll try and do all of this within the allotted 40 minutes. So if I'm going beyond my time, Lawrence, please draw my attention. I believe you all know who I am. Lawrence has introduced you. I'm the Naval Secretary for the Ghana Navy and all that he said. So what is this course about? Interest in the economic potential of the ocean is escalating, actually, with the contribution of the ocean to the global economy projected to double from 1.5 trillion in 2010 to 3.3 trillion by 2030. The ocean is seen as the next great economic frontier, with enormous ocean-based industries growing by many orders of magnitude in the recent past and near future. More than 3 billion people rely on the ocean for their livelihoods, and over 80% of the world merchandise trade is carried out by sea. Ocean contributes to poverty reduction, sustained economic growth, and food security. I believe the lesson yesterday might have given you a lot of insight into all of this. However, the benefits they provide are increasingly undermined by human activities. Rising CO2 emissions are driving the oceans warmer. Acidification is also ongoing, and deoxygenation, and they all threaten marine ecosystems and the people who depend on the ocean. And the ocean is being overwhelmed by some of these. And in the past, we thought that the ocean was so big to adopt or to heal itself after we caused so much pain to, but now we've seen that that's not really the case. So overfishing decreases fish stock, a third of which are already overexploited. Land-based pollutants, including plastic pollution and nutrients and sewage runoff, adversely affect coastal habitats and communities. These changes have long-term repercussions that require urgent scaling up of protection of marine environments, investment in ocean science, and support for small-scale fishing communities and the sustainable management of the ocean. So we thought the ocean were big enough to accommodate everything that we throw at it, but we realized that that is not the case. So in recent times, you see that the ocean is being overwhelmed, and this is causing a lot of things we see today. Seawater temperature is rising. We get fishes coming out at sea, whales dying, and all of that. And all these things are largely as a result of human activities. This is concerned that without the elaboration of specific principles or guidance, national blue economies or sustainable blue economies, there is a concern that without the specific principles of guidance and national blue economies or sustainable ocean economies, things are just going to fall apart. Many of the efforts go to further grow ocean-based economic sectors, focus not only on growing existing, so whatever is being done does not only focus on what is there already, but largely to see how best to bring new things on board. As we see the ocean, we say the ocean gives us life, carries about 70% of the Earth's population, gives food, all the things you've mentioned about. But if there is not a concerted effort at getting these benefits out of them, we stand to lose everything that the ocean has to offer. So in this regard, and having seen that the aim that has been set for the world is getting closer, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO was mandated by the General Assembly to lead the preparation phase of the United Nations Decade for Ocean Science for Sustainable Development between 2021 and 2030. That is the Ocean Decade. The vision of the Ocean Decade is the science we need for the ocean we want. That's what the vision is. So getting the necessary knowledge about the ocean to get what we need out of it. Provide a global convening framework for a wide and diverse range of ocean stakeholders to work towards common scientific priorities and address the most pressing needs for knowledge generation and application to achieve sustainable development. Ocean Decade will focus significant effort on capacity development and the transfer of marine technology, as well as data and knowledge management, given their critical importance in creating a robust enabling environment for ocean science. The Ocean Decade has the potential to greatly increase the available scientific knowledge about the entire ocean, including the currently poorly known areas of the deep sea, as well as regions where data gaps exist. So this Ocean Decade program wants to bring science into the fore to give us more knowledge about the sea. The Ocean Decade also presents an important opportunity to advance capacity building and technology transfer, engage and synergize partnerships across diverse ocean actor groups, and improve data management and accessibility practices and policies that are tailored to blue economic priorities. In doing so, the Ocean Decade can build synergies between the 2030 agenda and other ocean relevant agreements and advance coordination and collaboration between national, regional, and global agencies and stakeholders working on ocean science and management. The Ocean Decade now aims to leave no one behind in progress towards a sustainable ocean, and as such, geographical, generational, and gender diversity will be addressed in all actions carried out as part of the decade. Now, the goals that were set for the sustainable SDGs are supposed to end by 2030. So in 2021, this initiative was launched to kind of hasten the process so that all the things that have been set for SDG 14 are achieved. And I'll outline things are some of the things we hope to do to get this done. The Ocean Decade has the potential to improve the scientific basis for ocean governance and blue economies. For example, the Ocean Decade will accelerate knowledge about currently understudied ocean ecosystems and processes, help develop a comprehensive digital atlas of the entire ocean, expand observations infrastructure, enhance understanding of the connectivity between environmental and human processes, increase knowledge, applications, and services related to marine genetic resources, while improving forecast and predictive capacities. All of the above will contribute towards the ability of countries to implement their national and regional blue economies, allowing them to better understand the impacts of multiple stresses, including climate change, on species and ecosystems in the ocean. This course that we are doing has been designed by the Gulf of Guinea Maritime Institute as part of efforts to build capacity under the Ocean Decade program. It is aimed at building the capacity of early career ocean professionals to explore pathways to a vibrant ocean economy for Africa. I am aware that you already have already had discussions on understanding the ocean economy. So my aim today is for us to explore the concepts of ocean sustainability. I'm sure you've heard about ocean sustainability a lot of times. So why do we need a sustainable ocean and why now? Humankind has been damaging the seas for decades by discharging pollutants into the water, destroying coastal ecosystems, and overexploiting fish stocks. Ocean warming and ocean acidification are now new global scale threats affecting the seas today. A precondition for sustainable ocean use will be an exact analysis of its conditions so as to allow for the correct environmental policy measures to be taken from now on. There are multiple causes of the critical ocean state we find now. And I believe if I am to ask us to all mention a few, we'll be comfortably mentioning as many as you know. So be it overfishing, marine pollution, ocean warming or acidification, the oceans and ecosystem services we provide are under more serious threats than ever before. The many problems caused by either regional mismanagement or global climate change render marine protection a particular challenge, which can only be met by a multitude of measures. So we see that some countries are able to put some measures in place, regional bodies are able to, but looking at the vast nature of the ocean and the fact that being in Ghana, whatever I do may affect somebody in Nigeria or even in South Africa. If Ghana decides to do things well and South Africa decides not to do things well, it means we are wasting time. So we need multiple actors to get involved. That is why there's a need for us, as we've gathered here, to understand and get more knowledge into the ocean and why we need to sustain it. Coastal regions are acutely affected as they are particularly densely populated and coastal seas are subject to intensive use. The bulk of fish are taken from coastal waters. Which are moreover the focus of drilling for natural gas, crude oil, as well as intensive shipping transport. Tourism is another particular threat to coastal areas. Many coastal regions are popular holiday destinations. I'm sure when you go to Kenya, you see beautiful beaches. Mauritius, there are fantastic beaches and all of that. All these things affect the ecosystem. So many coastal regions are popular holiday destinations, which often results in natural areas in these regions being destroyed for the sake of construction hotel complexes. The recognition and correct assessment of individual threats is a precondition for future sustainable ocean use. This is not always easy. This is not always an easy feat because it's very difficult to know how much impact putting up a beach resort will have on a fish or a whale or some coral reefs and other things. It is relatively easy to estimate the degree of pollution caused by a damaged oil tanker. However, it is almost impossible for researchers to determine the likely impact of the insidious process of ocean acidification on different groups of marine life, such as fish, bivalves, and other species in the ocean. So in recent years, marine scientists have tried to identify and categorize the various aspects responsible for the mounting adverse impacts on our oceans. The following threats and pressures are of particular significance. First, we'll talk about marine pollution. And when we talk about marine pollution, some of the things that we see affecting the oceans are toxic substances and heavy metals from industrial plants. That's liquid and gaseous emissions that we see from all these big industries dotted in these developed countries and developing countries as well. Nutrients, in particular phosphate and nitrogen from agricultural sources and untreated wastewater, purification of coastal water. So what happens is sometimes when there is I don't know if you call it leaching, some of these nutrients are they find themselves into the sea. And whilst they are good nutrients for fish, at the point they form algae on top of the water, and then they prevent sunshine from going into the water. I've seen marine scientists amongst us, so I'm sure you understand these things. They prevent sunlight from hitting the bottom of the water. The fish don't get sunlight, they die, the species die. Bacteria end up taking the oxygen in the water, and the CO2 content in the oceans increase. And all these things have adverse effects on the ocean. Then ocean noise pollution from shipping and from growing offshore industry, the exploitation of oil and gas reserves, construction of wind turbines, and other extractive activities conducted in the ocean all pollute the marine environment. And then the growing demand for resources, exploitation of natural oil and natural reserves in inshore areas, and increasing also in deep sea areas, resulting in smaller and greater amounts of oil being released into the sea. These days, with this Russia-Ukraine war going on, a lot of countries are trying to produce more oil, more drilling. But as much as we go into the sea to take all these resources, the adverse effects will leave behind on the marine ecosystem. Then we have sand and gravel that are being sand winning at the beaches and all of that gravel. They take all these things for construction purpose and it distorts the marine ecosystem. You know, for the development of new pharmaceutical extraction of genetic resources from marine life, such as bacteria, sponges, and other life forms, the removal of which may result in damage to the sea floor habitats. So recently, I think there was a documentary that majority of the coral reefs in the world are dying off. And sometimes some of these researchers, when they go down to do their research, don't use the right methods, or some people who go for scuba diving or recreational thing end up damaging some of these reefs. We also try to exploit what we can get from it for pharmaceutical industries, and we end up damaging the ocean floor and the seabed. Then we have overfishing, which we've spoken about, habitat destruction, that's building projects, set up port extension and all of that, destruction of coral reefs and all the things I mentioned about. We also have bio-invasion. So sometimes somebody may inadvertently, maybe he's in a fishing vessel, they've caught some species of fish. They're in one area, they end up being in a different area, and they release those ones into the water if they are not dead, crabs or whatever. Sometimes they are alien to that environment, and they end up destroying the habitat there. And then we have climate change, the warming of the sea level rise, another thing. I was in Malta some time ago, and I was told that I think the subsidence or the land mass goes down by about 6 inches or 6 centimeters or something every year, which means Malta and some other countries will go extinct. In Ghana, there's a place called Keta. There could be about 10 plus kilometers stretch into the sea. Today, all those areas are submerged into the sea, and all these are effects of climate change. So these threats have not diminished in recent years, but I must admit that some action is being taken by some rich countries. But like I mentioned earlier, since the ocean is a global common, one person's inaction would inadvertently erode all the actions taken by one other country that is well equipped and well endowed. So it calls for concerted efforts. So things that are really going down in this regard would be maybe introduction of oil into the sea. But now those ones, they are taking steps to do that. But back to the contrary, the threats are actually increasing, all the other things are increasing. It's also worth noting that most countries that these things affect, that is small islands and developing countries, don't have the means to do the things they have to do to protect the oceans. They are in our bread and butter issue. So most often, maritime or marine protection is the least of their activities. But it's heartwarming to know that countries like Seychelles have done a lot to improve what they get from the sea. So we've spoken about sustainable days, sustainable that. I would want us to discuss how the concept of sustainability or sustainable ocean concept, how did they come about? But to be able to answer this question, we must first know where the term sustainability or the concept of sustainable exploitation or development came from. So to answer this question, I would want us to go back into the 18th century. The expression sustainable or sustainability was mooted by German forester and mining official Hans Carl von Clausewitz, who is the first person you see on the screen, to the left. Now, Hans was somebody who believed that whatever is taken, or the timber that is taken from Germany should not be for just the interim. Future posterity should be able to benefit from all these things. But his concept was more towards not cutting everything down, but not towards like a planting to replace. So his concept was mainly like using natural resources mindfully so that the supply never runs out. The aim of sustainability as used in forest management then was to achieve the greatest possible wood harvest sustainably. In other words, consistently over time without overexploiting the forest. That's 300 years ago. Von Clausewitz was voicing demands which are still crucial to the current sustainability debate. Then, however, the focus was on economic consideration rather than nature and forest conservation per se. This concept was enforced by US scholar George Perkins Marsh, who is acknowledged as one of the forefathers of the environmental movement when he advocated for the wise use of natural resources in 1864. In the 19th century, the idea of sustainability was applied to marine resources, especially oyster by marine scientist Carl August Mobius. These ideologies metamorphosed into the classic three pillars model. That's the environment, the economy, and society. So if you look at the model, the sustainability is like the roof and is being supported by the economy, environment, and society. So this was a model that all the things that it taught about, like this is the model that was developed through the concept developed by these pioneers. So the aim of this model developed at the end of the 1990s was to pave the way for sustainable development. Its underlying assumption is that economic, social, and environmental concerns are interconnected and form an invisible whole for the purposes of sustainable development. One refinement is known as the weighted three pillars. In order to underscore the great importance of the environment, in this scheme, that's the last one you see there. It is represented as a foundation. So if you look at the foundation, you see natural resources and the climate. Resting on this foundation are the pillars of the economy, society, and a new addition, which is culture. So the people sought to modify the concept, and they realized that without natural resources and a sustainable climate, all these things we are talking about would yield nothing. But there also needs to be a conscious culture by society. There needs to be some, if I should say, indoctrination or a certain way of life to make all these things feasible and sustainable. But these are criticized and people have punched holes and made modifications and all of that. But these concepts eventually led to what has become central to global development now, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. The concept of sustainable development, concept of sustainability, has become so central to global development that the Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the Global Goals, were adopted by the United Nations in 2015, the universal call to action to end poverty and protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. 17 SDGs, as I've shown on the screen, are integrated. They recognize that action in one area will affect outcomes in others, and that development must balance social, economic, and environmental sustainability. Countries have committed to prioritize progress for those who are farthest behind. The SDGs are designed to end poverty, hunger, AIDS, and discrimination against women and girls. The creativity, know-how, technology, and financial resources from all of society is necessary to achieve the SDGs in every context. Now, what is central to us, if you can see from it, the SDG 14. So SDG 14.7, the 7 point under that of the UN of these goals, focuses on enhancing the economic benefit of small states, small islands and developing states, and then low developing countries. They are to benefit these countries from the sustainable use of marine resources, including through the sustainable management of fisheries, aquaculture, and tourism. The world has 54 low middle income and lower coastal and island countries for whom oceans represent a significant jurisdictional area and a source of tremendous opportunity. Oceans and their marine resources are thus the base upon which the economies of states and these small islands and developing states and coastal low developing countries are built, and they are central to their culture and sustainable development, to poverty reduction, and to achieving the sustainable development goals. Small island developing states face particular challenges to their sustainable development, including small populations, limited resources, vulnerability to natural disasters, external shocks, strong dependence on international trade. Their growth and development is often hampered by high transportation and communication costs. Because they are so isolated, most of their activities are affected by high costs of transportation and communication, disproportionately expensive public administration and infrastructure due to their small size, and little or no opportunity to create economies of scale. The particular vulnerabilities and challenges of these small island developing states were among the others recognized in Barbados, in the Barbados Program of Action, the Mauritius Strategy of Implementation, and the Rio Plus 20 outcome document. And that is what eventually brought about what we now know as a blue economy, or the term that has become very central to sustainable ocean economic development now, as we term as blue economy. But I'll talk about that briefly later. Modalities of action, that's the SOMUA pathway, was one of the initiatives that recognized that sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, coastal tourism, and the possible use of seabed resources and potential sources of renewable energy are among the main building blocks of a sustainable ocean-based economy in these small islands and developing states, and express their support for sustainable development of the ocean resources. These small islands and developing states argue that they are better described as large ocean states, so they should not be seen as small islands because their livelihoods depend on the ocean. So to acknowledge the size of the EEZ and the importance of the ocean for their lives and livelihoods. Least development countries are the poorest countries. Their low level of economic development and all the things that they have hamper they getting the best out of whatever the oceans have to offer. So the small and then coastal low development countries often lack the technical, institutional, technological, and financial capabilities to benefit to the fullest their marine resources. This lack of capacities and resources will need to be addressed in order to allow the blue economy to achieve the economic diversification, job creation, poverty reduction, and economic development of these small island developing states. The promotion of science, technology, and these coastal low development countries. Growth in the blue economy for these countries, which mostly are in Africa, because most of these low development countries can be found in our part of the world. Growth in the blue economy will require an appropriately skilled workforce and the promotion of science, technology, innovation, and multidisciplinary research, realizing that the full potential of the blue economy also requires the effective inclusion of all societal groups, especially women, young people, local communities, indigenous people, and the marginalized or underrepresented groups. And this platform is one such forum because we are from different backgrounds. From what I saw, the demographics, different countries, some are into accounting, some are into marine, different backgrounds. But once you understand how important the ocean is and what the opportunities are there for us, we then know how we can benefit ultimately from it. So with all that we have said, what would a sustainable ocean economy look like? What do we anticipate or what do we want it to be like? So that once we understand it, we can apply it whatever we want to do, whatever ideas we have, everything that we do, we can factor these things into them. So a sustainable blue economy is a marine-based economy that provides social and economic benefits for the current and future generations by contributing to food security, poverty eradication, livelihoods, income, employment, health, safety, equity, and political stability. It restores, protects, and maintains the diversity, productivity, resilience, core functions, and the value of marine ecosystems, the natural capital upon which its prosperity depends. Let me go back to the first point. We see a lot of piracy happening in a lot of coastal states in Africa, in the Gulf of Guinea. I'm not sure we've seen countries like Canada has the largest coastline in the world. But even with that, you don't see a lot of piracy going on there because coastal communities get better jobs from the community, they get employment, they get so much more from it, and they appreciate it. So you hardly find these people going out to sea to attack vessels. But in our part of the world, we see people use the oceans as place fortification. People, in fact, most of the places in the world that you see have all the best buildings along the beaches and the coast. But when you come to Africa, we build with our backs facing the beach because we don't know the essence of the sea. We don't appreciate what it holds for us. And we turn it into toilets, and then you see all sorts of trash and refuse and all of that in these areas. And this will not, if this does not change, we will not get the benefits of it. So developing a sustainable ocean economy would help people get jobs. They'll understand what the ocean means. You have less piracy because now people don't have jobs. It's a threat to national security. When there's piracy and these crimes, it affects a lot of things in our countries and in different places. So beyond that, a sustainable blue economy is one that is based on clean technologies. We mentioned the impact of port expansions and tourism and all of that. But once there are technologies that take cognizance of the vulnerabilities and the fragile nature of the marine ecosystem, these things can be overcome. Also, one important thing is the ocean does not have a central body that governs it. So IMO does one part. You have an authority that deals with seabed development. There's no one single overarching body that rules the ocean. And this creates a lot of problems for us. There are competing different people, force and other things. So once we think of a sustainable ocean economy, we should think of one that is governed by both private and public processes that are inclusive, well-informed, precautionary and adaptive, accountable and transparent, holistic and cross-section and long-term. It doesn't only think about the benefits today, but it looks into the future. It's innovative and proactive. It looks at the challenges that may come up and it finds solutions even before the problems come. Then it's one that, so to create a sustainable blue economy, public and private actors must do this amongst others. So this is not exhaustive. They must set clear, measurable, and internally consistent goals and targets for sustainable blue economic development, or the sustainable blue economy. Must assess and communicate their performance of these goals and targets. So targets must be set and they must be assessed regularly. Create a level economic and legislative playing field that provides the blue economy with adequate incentives and rules. Plan, manage, and effectively govern the use of marine space and resources, applying inclusive methods and ecosystems. So here we talk about marine spatial planning, who can use what part of the sea and for what. I believe there is another course on this that may come up later by a different group under this Within the Cave initiative. And then the next one is plan, manage, and effectively govern the use of marine space and resources, applying inclusive methods and the ecosystem approach. Develop and apply standards, guidelines, and best practices that support a sustainable blue economy. Recognize that the maritime and land-based economies are interlinked, that many of the threats facing marine environments originate on land. So all the problems at sea, or if I may not be correct if I say that most of the problems at sea start on land. Piracy, it starts on land, ends at sea, comes back on land. Pollution, same. So all these things are affected by activity. So we as humans must regulate what we do on land that end up ultimately at sea. So we must actively cooperate, share information and knowledge, best practices, lessons learned, perspectives and ideas to realize this sustainable and prosperous future we all desire. So in conclusion, I want to say that the ocean is even more important than we thought for human and planetary health, for climate and food security, for local jobs, and the global economy. We learned that ocean health is more at risk than we thought because different pressures add up and contribute to the rapid and unpredictable changes in ocean ecosystems. But importantly, we also learned that ocean holds many of the urgent solutions humanity and the planet need. More fish and seafood production can provide abundant climate-friendly proteins for the growing population. Offshore clean energy can power the world many times over. Mangroves and seaweed can provide food, fuel, and fiber while mitigating climate change and boosting biodiversity. Genetic resources in the ocean can advance health and fight disease. I was told that I think there is a component of the vaccine that was produced that we derived from, how do you call it, whales or something. So that shows how important the sea is and what we can do with it. So we can and we must produce more from the ocean, and we have to do it in ways that mitigate climate change, preserve biodiversity, regenerate the ocean health, and leave no one behind. We can produce more by protecting more. Thank you very much. So I'll end with a quote on the screens that a sustainable ocean economy brings diverse stakeholders together to achieve common goals. The 3 Ps of effective protection, sustainable production, and equitable prosperity. The sustainable ocean economy paradigm, groups work together by adopting integrated and balanced management of the ocean, in which each of the 3 Ps contributes to the other. The result is a triple win for nature, people, and the economy, in a world where prosperity is greater and more equitably distributed than it is today. Thank you very much for having me. I believe I didn't shoot so much over my time, and I'll be happy to engage in the next interactive session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a very insightful presentation on the concepts of ocean sustainability. I believe we've all learned a lot today, this morning. I'll go to the chat box now and read some reactions first, and then we'll look at the questions going forward. So Urias Taylor said that massive awareness about the importance of the blue economy should be very effective in coastal cities and towns. National government should adopt measures that will land affluence to the ocean. Okay, thank you very much, Urias, for your comment on the importance of the blue economy. I'll quickly go to Linda's question. She said that I think the subject of ocean sustainability has to be factored in our schools so we can prepare the younger generation to bear this in mind as well. What are some of the ways we can be more intentional about teaching children in nursery, primary, and second cycle schools about ocean sustainability? I believe this is hinged on the concepts of the sustainability of the blue economy when it comes to society and maybe the environment. And I think Naval Lieutenant Commander Duodu touched on the fact that we need some kind of indoctrination, and that I'll leave that to him to make his reactions or comments on that question from Linda. So again, Linda said, what are some of the ways we can be more intentional about teaching children in nursery, primary, and second cycle schools about ocean sustainability? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, Lawrence, thank you. So I think, as you may be aware, from if GOGMI, I think during the World Oceans Day, did a program with some Canadians where there were quizzes and there were interactions about what the ocean was for second cycle students. Things like having clubs in the schools about maritime and ocean stuff would go a long way to improve awareness. Today we see a lot of children, those of kids at home or nephews and nieces, grandchildren, whatever, you see they watch PJ Masks, they watch Paw Patrol, they watch all sorts of cartoons. Some of these things can have thematic episodes that talk about the ocean. When some of us were kids, we used to watch something called Captain Planet. It was mainly about the environment, how the environment should be protected and all of that. So some of these things, I think a lot of funding should go into that so that it becomes intentional, people get to know about them, and then they can be improved with time. So on the being deliberate and pushing the agenda to young people and children and all of that. That's what I would have to say about.
Okay, thank you. So another question is from Zanu from Nigeria, and he's asking that the blue economy emphasized the industrialization of the oceans, while the concept of sustainability is to guarantee intergenerational justices. How best do you think African nations can best maintain this balance between exploration and exploitation?
That's a very deep question. I think those of us in the developing countries are very disadvantaged because we are in an era where all these development countries develop at the back of coal. They developed at the back of using a lot of things that harm the environment. But today, they say we must develop sustainably. And this kind of sustainable development costs a lot of money. So how can we get the development we need whilst considering the environment and also developing in an economic or an affordable way? That's our dilemma. But thankfully, these days, there are technologies that have come that help with these things. But these technologies are not indigenous. So governments must be conscious to set programs in place. So for instance, let's say offshore oil and gas. I think Zanu is from Nigeria. Offshore oil and gas. So the Nigerian government can put a policy and say that Slambuji or Shell or whichever company is developing oil fields must be able to develop capacity within the next 5 to 7 years, such that there are foreign people or there is the technology locally to support the industry, even if we leave. And also there should be conscious efforts in bringing, in funding research and development into these areas. Most of the research that we get are from foreigners, and they would give you the direction they want you to look into. So whatever you are researching into might not be what is needed to develop your country. So we need to fund, we need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to fund some of these things that we want to do. So governments must show commitment. There need to be the political will to push it. And also the entrepreneurs, there are people who have money to do some of these things. Instead of sending the money to buy houses in Dubai and living large and other things, once they are aware of the opportunity, some of them may not even know the opportunities that exist. So that's why we must all be advocates. We must spread the news and let them know the opportunities there. So once they know, I'm sure they will venture into it. So technology will be the best answer, but the technology is expensive. But then once there's government will and there's commitment, that technology transfer can take time, and then we can all eventually pass it on so that we can develop sustainably whilst not being left behind in terms of our economic development as a people. That's what I would have to say to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Any more questions? Well, so I have a question also. When you were talking about the description for the sustainable ocean economy, you touched on the issue of ocean governance, and a lot of times it's almost like that when it comes to the issue of ocean governance, it's almost in the powers of governments and then industry leaders and people in high places. But I want to know if young people like us who are happen to be on this call, do you think we can also play any role at all when it comes to the issue of ocean governance, maybe advocating or pushing for better systems for ocean governance?
Yes, I think we do, but to be able to do that, you must understand what is there, what the issues are first. So it starts from some of these ingredients. Once you understand the issues that are there, then you can bring it up in conversations. You can, instead of calling into the morning talk show to talk about, if they give an open, talk about how corrupt you think somebody is, or the most trending thing on social media and what your opinion is about it. Once you are well versed in some of these things, can bring these topical things up in discourses with your friends, your book clubs, or wherever you find yourself. And eventually also demanding accountability. When you get a chance to town hall meetings. I know these days governments try to do town hall meetings. You ask questions, but you should know your staff before you ask this question. You must understand what is there, what is not there, so that you know what is in between. If you don't have this knowledge, how can you then go on to even find out what is required? So sensitization is key. We must understand the issues bothering on ocean sustainability, blue economic development, ocean health, maritime security, all these things, we must understand them so that we can bring it to the doorstep of those who matter. We can bring it in our conversations every day. It becomes topical, and then we can all know about it, and then you may never know. Your friend may even have an idea that might end up being a maritime business that will bring you a lot of income. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. I'll take this question from Urias Taylor again. He says that what can national government of African countries do to minimize sewage discharge to the ocean? Because we are aware of drainages from urban areas. We are aware that drainages from urban areas go straight out to the ocean. Let me take it again. So he's saying that what can
I get it. I get it. But there is something we call MAPO. There's something we call MAPO, which is the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships. But it's not only ships, but always that kind of end up in the sea. So there are procedures that we need to take to discharge filth or waste into the sea. Most of the maritime agencies are aware, but nothing is done about it. So the people who must take action know about it. Unfortunately, they don't do anything about it. That's where the problem lies. They are there, they are regulations. They take steps to even talk about how the water should be treated, which parts green water should be let into the water, which matter should not be let into the water, and all of that. So there are regulations. It's just about enforcement. That has been the bane of most of our countries. We lack enforcement. Yes, please, I'm done. So we can take the next one.
Thank you. We can take
the next question.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll take this one from Linda, and she says, in your opinion, what are some of our strengths within the sub-region or Africa as a whole when it comes to working towards ocean sustainability? What are some of the gaps that we can work on to improve when it comes to the issue of ocean sustainability? Thank you. So please, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. So the strengths and opportunities for the sub-region is the fact that we have a very youthful population. There are a lot of opportunities out there in shipping, oil and gas, in tourism, but unfortunately, we've not had the necessary support to exploit all these things. So once that kickstarts, or once there is a conscious effort towards that, then most of our challenges about unemployment and all these things can be dealt with. And the maritime space holds a lot of promise to get some of these issues or challenges. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. Yes, there may be challenges. We don't have the technology. We still use wooden boats and all of that. That in itself is an opportunity. Imagine all the fishing boats in West Africa or in the Gulf of Guinea or in Africa being, there's a policy to modernize them, to make nicer boats or more. That is a shipping industry developing. So all the marine engineers who finish school don't have to write thousands of applications. Somebody who has done architecture can go there to apply whatever he knows. Somebody who learns welding. And when these people go out to sea and they come, they need problems, people fix them. Engineers get work. People who man, all fishing will not be like a job for the illiterates and all of that. You must look beyond that. Recreational fishing and all of that, motorsports. I don't even know how many times you see people surfing in our waters. There are Olympic Games going on with surfers earning millions of dollars and all of that. All these are opportunities we can take advantage of. So the opportunities are limitless. You just need the right policy and the right environment to make the best of it.
Thank you for the response, sir. Are there any more questions? Okay, if in the absence of any further questions, so I believe you have a very busy schedule, so we can excuse you, but thank you very much for the insightful presentation on the concept of ocean sustainability.
Thank you too for having me. It's been a pleasure and I'm glad to be here. Sorry for the technical challenges that did not make us have our meeting yesterday. And I hope that we can all work together as one and then create the future for the oceans that we require so that we can all make the best out of it. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, sir.